Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I get the opportunity to talk to somebody who really understands the patience and the care that's required in order to develop stronger leaders. Jeff McManus was born and raised in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, and Douglasville, Georgia. He was the youngest of three. His older brother, Craig, owns his own landscaping company in Douglasville, Georgia, and his sister, Jeanette Russell, flies with Delta now for over 30 years. Jeff's dad always gave his siblings and him the opportunity to work, especially on Saturdays. There were no such things as playing Little League sports. They worked and learned the value of being honest, dependable, and the pride of ownership. Many times the work involved landscaping, driving tractors, and doing things outside. After growing up doing this work, Jeff had no desire to do landscaping, but college and Dr. Ponder at Auburn University Horticulture Department showed him there were other occupations that suited him while using his experience and knowledge. After Auburn, Jeff was employed by a large landscape contractor in Florida and worked at the Grand Cypress Resort property in Orlando, where he learned to have an eye for detail and become a student of how to grow tropical plants and motivate people. He was recruited to work in North Miami at the beautiful Turnberry Isle Resort in landscaping and worked there for almost 11 years. It was at Turnberry he became a better leader of himself and others. In 2000, he came to work at Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi. Today, he serves as the Director of Landscape, Airport, and Golf Services. Every day is about giving back and growing. Jeff likes to grow plants, grow people, and grow ideas. Investing in growing leaders is a strong calling in his life. Jeff currently lives in Oxford, Mississippi, and is married to Suzanne for 23 years. They have 4 sons, Samuel, Nathan, Joshua, and Mark, 3 in college and 1 in the 11th grade. Jeff McManus, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Who? I'm ready.
I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, I love to grow things. I love growing plants, but I really love growing people who grow plants. And I love to grow ideas. I love to see people go beyond the barriers that they have already set in their mind and think of their own limitations.
And, I had the opportunity to look through your new book, Growing Weeders into Leaders, Leadership Lessons from the Ground Level. And I really enjoyed one time when you were talking about a situation where you had met up with the chancellor of Ole Miss, and that was Dr. Robert Kyatt. And you had talked about a question that you had asked him about vision, and getting people to go along with it. And he gave you 4 basic steps that you need to follow. He said, know who you are, know who you want to be, get buy-in from everyone, and allow for honest and open feedback and disagreement at any time. And he also added something about setting goals. And he said, don't set small goals and don't get caught up in feeling sorry for yourself. And so many people do. So obviously that's made a huge impact on you. But when you start thinking about actually, having weeders and turning them into leaders, how does all that fit?
Well, it's the mindset of what are we here for? And it's to get people to think beyond just a menial task of maybe trimming shrubs or whatever the task is in anybody's occupation. It ties to something bigger and more meaningful. And so my job as a leader is to connect those dots, to help them see the bigger picture, to realize they have purpose, and to grow that passion for what they're doing, and so that they're tremendously effective and do that with excellence. And so I like to remind people especially when I'm working here, is if you don't love what you do, let's find what you do love so that you can enjoy every day and not dread Mondays. Don't think about every day as a Monday and, oh my goodness, I've only got 30 years until I can retire. Man, enjoy what you're doing. So that's the whole mindset of getting people maybe over the hump mentally that they really love what they're doing.
As you were saying that, I started thinking about maybe situations where people get goals or the thought of goals quite confused. I mean, because the way that you explained it, it was quite different than I think the way most people kind of execute on goals. Because I was reading a story talking about female leaders versus male leaders, and they were talking specifically about goal setting. And they were saying how men often have a tendency to create goals that are just, too far out there. I mean, people talk about challenge people and give them a stretch goal. And they were saying that men kind of push things so far that it becomes a situation where, it undermines their ability to get people to move forward. They're like, hey, there is no way we're going to get there. Where, they say females are a little bit more realistic in their goal setting, and that oftentimes, they have people that they could carry along with them to a much greater rate and faster degree, and they get more accomplished because they aren't unrealistic with their goal setting.
That's true. I mean, you've got to have, we have some goals inside of that we're trying to accomplish. We have daily goals that we're trying to do and seasonal goals, monthly goals, all here in our organization. But goals have got to be something you can put your hands around, something you can see, something you can put a check mark by. But that vision may not ever fully come about. And so what our vision statement is cultivating greatness. And what we're doing is creating this beautiful campus so that when students come, they know this is where they want to be. They want to grow here. They want to develop here. And then they're going to go on and cure cancer. They're going to go on and change the world. They're going to make this place better. So we're cultivating, growing it so that they can launch, so to speak, off this pad and do great things. And so we're a small part of that. So that's the bigger vision of what we do.
There was also one thing that I read in the book to me that was just kind of totally hit home. It talked about how a pecan tree, it takes, 6 to 8 years for it actually to bear its, fruit or the nut. And you have to really think about that when you're, wanting to develop and grow your people. And I think that was just such a real, really, really important point that hits home is that, this isn't something where I'm dealing with annuals, is it?
No. This is something you're going to deal with for the long term. It's nurturing, it's watering, it's growing. It's just like growing plants. And you got to do that with people and ideas, and you're always working it. You're tending the garden of people. You're tending the garden of ideas, and you're really adding to that. If you're not the one out there tending to it, then things are going to get lost. Weeds are going to take over, and nature's going to reclaim itself to chaos. And so it's got to have an intentional plan.
So when I start thinking about, taking, the weeders and growing them into leaders, I also start thinking about a lot of folks that you may have that you're trying to nurture and thinking about it from a long-term perspective. And, you're putting all your efforts and attempts in, but, they're just a person who is, maybe doesn't have a can't do issue, but they have definitely a won't do issue. And you just, sometimes you just want to yank that weed out and just discard it. How do you prevent not yanking them too soon, and also knowing that, that weed's never going to be able to leave?
I liked how you put that. You just can't yank it out. Sometimes what we found is if you really want to grow good grass that is weed free, you got to focus on growing the grass, not the weeds. So you fertilize, you water, and you give it plenty of sunlight. Well, grass will eventually choke out the weeds, the good, healthy grass. It's funny how that happens in with humans too. As we started changing our culture and really started focusing on growing each other, we wanted people to be successful. We would give them plant knowledge. We would give them opportunities to be leaders. We would give them opportunities to be accountable. Things that just grew them. Well, they got healthier. They got stronger. And over time, some of the folks that maybe you would identify as thinking of as a weed, some of them left on their own because they felt more comfortable in another setting, which was good for them. But it was amazing how many people that you might think were weeds really were good, healthy grass, but they just needed some encouragement, and they changed over. They came back over to see the positive culture. It's kind of those guys who sit on the fence and are just watching to see who's going to influence them. If I wasn't proactively watering and fertilizing, then the weeds just took over, and those people tended to go that way. So I found that growing the culture was much more important than the results I was getting.
So I can start thinking about, your business and, it being and having that long-term view, as well as how that absolutely fits in developing people and creating a culture. I mean, it doesn't happen fast. It's not an annual thing, right?
Right.
Although you do have to pay attention to it annually. It isn't something that's just, going to be done within a single growing season, right? So
that's right.
When I start thinking about many other types of organizations and industries and things like that, time is not their luxury. I mean, they have the pressure of competition. They have the pressure of, making certain numbers in order to, keep things flowing or meet the needs of, maybe shareholders or internal constituents or even external constituents. I mean, how does a leader in those types of environments make sure that they, keep the right mindset and play for the long term? Because too many times they're just, focused in on the minute by minute and even second by second.
Well, you're right on, Jim. I mean, you're right on with your remarks, but what you find is leaders like Jack Welch who talk about the team that has the best employees usually wins. And so how do you get the best employees? You've got to invest in them. And so it's just like taking care of your equipment. You can either service it, change the oil, sharpen the blades, or you can just run it to death. And it's going to stop. And you're going to have to do something that's going to cost you a whole lot more. So we look at investing in our people is like preventative maintenance. And it even takes them to a higher level. We've seen people outgrow these positions because we've invested in them. And we really want them to be successful. We want them, if they can do more than what they're doing here, we want them to continue to grow. We've had people take other jobs in other areas. We've had them become managers and leaders of other departments. We feel like we're an incubator to grow people's greatness inside of them. Don't let this job handcuff you if you're created to do something else. But if you love this and this is your passion, man, we want you to be the very best at it. We want you to be the expert where people are coming to you and asking you about their plants, asking you how you grow these things. And they see themselves then all of a sudden as, wow, I am the plant expert out here. These are my plants. And they take that ownership and that pride. It's just a totally different mindset versus this is just a job.
I also too think that, for me, when I lived in Memphis, not too far from where you are, when my wife and I first got married, we lived on a corner house. We actually were the second owners of a house. We purchased it out of a state, and it had quite an extensive amount of landscaping. And so for me, I put a big effort into trying to, take it, to maintain it and also make it even better. And I can tell you that so many people would just stop me as I was outside and give me compliments, about, how the yard looked. And you know what? The amount of, gratification, satisfaction, all the things that go along with building a stronger well-being was something that it was hard for me to describe. I can only imagine that your folks, how that, can also make a huge impact on you being able to build an even stronger culture.
Well, what you just said, Jim, is right on. And this is what I teach to other businesses, and when I'm working with them is creating that pride of ownership, no matter what it is. If you're creating widgets, being the best widget creator. We're fortunate in landscaping, just like in your yard, everybody sees the results. Sometimes when you're working in accounting, not everybody can see your results, just a few people, but you get that gratification. We're fortunate we can get that, and people see the logo on the shirt that may have our department name on it or whatever. You get treated like a rock star at the local grocery store, like, oh my, you work there, and because it does have a great reputation. Well, that's that pride of ownership. I don't care where you work. If you work the Ritz-Carlton, it's like it's known for that service. of, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, and that it's my pleasure. And that's just, to me, that's a great mark of what an employee should be and how they should be engaged in their workplace. So there's a lot of pride, a lot of ownership that comes with developing people's mindset.
Well, when we start talking about, pride and, ownership and, being able to, build that strong culture, a lot of it is rooted, in quotes, because they help us focus quickly and maybe readjust. Is there a quote or two that you can share?
Well, as you know, Jim, in my book, it's full of quotes. I'm a quote collector. And so I'm just thinking of one here. One of my favorite ones, just for me personally, reminds me to keep being persistent. It's from Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. He wrote, one of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. And so many times I've wanted to stop. And that quote has kept me going. It's like, this is only temporary. Keep pushing, keep going, and you will see the success. I remember when we were just frustrated with the drama here, the negativity in our department. It's like, oh my goodness. And I realized I had to change. I had to start planning something positive and growing. After 10 years of being here, it took me that long to start really planting positive seeds. So that don't stop, that quote, temporary defeat, just keep persisting. I'm glad I did.
I think that's a great message to send, because that's one of the downsides of being mindful and living in the moment, is that it's temporary, right?
That's right.
So you talk about this transition. You talk about, you being able to, deepen your roots and grow others, and to do that, there's a lot of humps that we have to get over in order for that to happen. Is there a time where you've had to get over the hump where we can all learn to grow better?
Well, I think when I was in Miami working at the resort, I had just gone down there. I was probably 25 years old. I was the youngest person on the crew. It was a union shop. Most of the guys had not been supervised in the last 2 or 3 years, so they were pretty much just doing what they felt was right. Some of the guys weren't really into the work. They would clock in and go home, come back and clock out. And just a lot of craziness, and I was trying to get it all figured out. And it was a really low point in my life. I was trying to learn the plant names. I was trying to learn to speak Spanish. I was trying to speak Creole. I was trying to all these things, learn the culture, and I was just at my wits' end. I had overhired. I hired more people to come work because I hadn't done a good job on my due diligence on how many people we needed. Several of our contractors had fired us because we upped the rates because we hired more people, and which caused me to have to lay off a lot of people. And that was hard. I had to lay off about 20 people, and I realized I was affecting lives. I was affecting families. The breadwinners, I was laying them off, and that was emotionally very, very hard. It was probably one of the worst days of my life. One night I was coming home from a night class. I was taking night classes at the local community college, learning my plants of that area in South Florida, and I fell asleep at the wheel, totaled out my car. I ended up in the hospital. I ended up being fine, just minor things. It could have been a lot worse. Fortunately, I had my seatbelt on, but I remember laying in that bed going, "There's just got to be a better." I'm burning the candle on both ends. I'm going after it as much as I can. I'm doing as hard as I can, and I just pretty much at my wits' end. I was broken. I was a broken person, just trying to figure out how to do this. And the teachings of my dad and mom came back, and that was of Zig Ziglar saying, "You can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want." And I had to totally shift my thinking, and to start thinking, what is it that these people want? And so instead of me thinking about what I wanted, I had to start thinking what they wanted. And it totally changed me in how I started approaching it and started building collaboration with our team instead of me always working against our team.
Thanks for sharing that story. And glad you survived that, and it wasn't something that prevented you from doing the great work that you've done. So I mean, when I start looking at the work that you're doing, the industry and what you're doing, I mean, you start talking about rock stars. I mean, you're becoming a rock star with what you've done and the accomplishments you've made. You've been doing a lot of public speaking. You've written a book. I mean, you have 4 sons that I'm sure are contributing and helping others grow too. I mean, your wife. I mean, you got a lot of things going on. If you were to talk about a goal, what would be one of them?
Well, Jim, let me just put that in perspective. Every Tuesday, I get to roll the garbage down to the edge of the curb, and I get to roll the garbage can back on Tuesday night. So let's keep that in perspective. So thank you for your kind words. But I mean, when you find your passion, which is helping others and growing others, that's where I want to be, in that spot. And that's working at a university. What a better place than to help grow others. And so I get to do that not only internally, but externally. So that's been a fun launch for me, is to get to do this with other companies as well, teaching them how to grow their people.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement, along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Jeff, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Jeff McManus, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Mental barriers.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Take an inventory. Work your inventory.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Investing in others.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Reading books.
And what would be one book, and it could be from any genre, that you recommend to our listeners? And of course, we'll put a link to Growing Weeders into Leaders on your show notes page as well.
Becoming a Person of Influence, John Maxwell.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Jeff McManus. Okay, Jeff, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Become a student of learning. Just learn, just grow, just continually to grow, because every challenge you run into, if you will learn, listen, and grow, read about it, listen to others, you'll be able to equip yourself and be able to sustain whatever challenges you have.
Jeff, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. JeffMcManusSpeaking.com. Have all my social media there. That's where I'm doing my blogs. Would love to connect with your listeners.
Jeff McManus, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.